Hello, Accounting One. Today we are in Chapter 4. You'll notice we're here in Chapter 4 of Mind Taps. And we're going to go to Lesson 4-1. And right under Lesson 4-1, open up the end of lesson review, and you will find terms. So if you want to go over the vocabulary, audit your understanding. But we're going to be doing working papers down here, working papers. And this opens up our work together for 4-1. If you're in your book, it's chapter 4, of course, and it's the first section, which starts on page 92. 92, all right? And so we're going to go to this work together, and I'll show you how this works. There are 3 steps to this, and the first thing it says, Isabel Seville owns a service business called Seville Company, which uses these accounts. In order to create a chart of accounts, you must first classify each account. For each account, select the type of account that it is. Is it an asset, a liability, an owner's equity, a revenue, or an expense? Okay, and so we're just going to put a dot in what category each one of these goes in. Now, this goes back to us knowing the definition of assets, liabilities, owner's equity, revenue, and expenses. That's what it goes back to, and that's what we've been working on since day 1. Okay, so if you'll see up here at the top, right above assets, liabilities, owner's equity, it shows that these 3 will be on our balance sheet when we get to doing our balance sheet. These are ALO. You remember ALO, the equation? Revenue and expenses, that's part of the income statement that we'll do soon. Revenue, money coming in, expenses, money going out just to run the business. All right, so we have to go through each one of these and figure out, is it an asset, liability, owner's equity, revenue, or an expense? The next step will show us in the chart of account where we've put each one of these. All right, so accounts payable, Supply Mart, it's a payable. And you got to remember that payables, we have to pay them, or Miss Seville, Isabel, has to pay them. So that's a liability. A payable is a liability. A receivable, L North, Isabel's waiting to receive this money from L North, so that's an asset. An accounts payable, again, just like the one up here, accounts payable, it's a liability. Annika is going to owes Isabel money. Here's another accounts receivable, Greg. Just like this accounts receivable here, and like I've been telling you, accounts receivables, we own it, and it has value. It's an asset. Now this is easy peasy. It's telling you it's an expense. So go right on over here and put it in expenses. Insurance expense, again, it's telling you expense. Go on and put it in the expense. Easy. Prepaid insurance, when we buy this, we own it and it has value. It covers us for the next 6 or 12 months, whatever it is. So that is an asset. We own it and it has value. Okay. Drawing. The drawing account is when the owner, in this case Isabel Seville, takes money out of the business so that she can use it for her personal use. Maybe she uses it for her kids or for a car payment or something like that. So drawing is always owner's equity. Owner's equity. Cash, you should remember by now, cash is an asset. It's the most liquid asset. Goes at the top of assets. Sales. Remember your definition of sales? And you'll remember that sales is incoming money. That's revenue. Supplies. Supplies, we own them and they have value. So that makes it an asset. Look, it says expense. Supplies expense, so put it under expenses. The next one says automobile expense. It's telling us expense. Put it under expenses. Isabel Seville capital. This is the amount, this is the money that's owed back to Isabel at some point when she closes her business. Okay? That's equity. That's the true form of owner's equity, is the capital account. The last one down here says expense. So put it in expense. All right? So now we've gone through each one, and each line has a dot and what category it's supposed to be in. And that's why I've been trying from day one for you guys to understand the vocabulary of assets, liabilities, owner's equity, revenue, and expenses. Well, check my answers. Okay, got a check mark up at the top. Oh, daggone it. It went on to section 3. And we haven't even done section. Okay, so we'll go to the next step. It has X's in here because I clicked the wrong button. All right, so now if you see, we figured out what category everything goes in. Now if you'll go to page 94, and you'll see how we have to put account numbers in for each one of these. Assets always start with a 100, or 1. Assets always start with 1. Liabilities always will start with 2. This is at the top of page 94. Owner's equity will always start with a 3. Revenue will always start with a 4. And expenses always start with a 5. You have to give account numbers to each account. You have to give account numbers to each account. So again, assets, look in your book on page 91. Assets always start with a 1, liabilities with a 2, owner's equity with a 3, incomes or the revenue with a 4, and expenses with a 5. And what they want us to do with this, it says you must assign account numbers so that the accounts receivable, accounts payable, and expenses are in alphabetical order. Accounts receivable, accounts payable, and expenses have to be in alphabetical order. And we go by the last name on the account. Use 3-digit account numbers and numbers the accounts within divisions of 10. Okay, now, cash is always first. Always first. It's the one that's used the most. It is always first. So in this case, we start with 110 for cash. Okay, now if you look in your book again on 94, it shows cash and then petty cash and then the accounts receivables. We don't have a petty cash here. So next we have to do the accounts receivables, and we have to keep them in alphabetical order by last name. And we have to keep them in order of tens. So I go here to L North. It gives me the option of 120, 130, 135, 125. Now, if we're supposed to stay in tens, then we know that 135 and 125 aren't going to work. But we know that N, North, comes before V, Veres. So this is going to be 120. Now we have the other account receivable. Again, the 125 doesn't work because we're staying in tens. The 120 doesn't work because we've already given that out. The 135 doesn't work because we're staying in tens. So this has to be 130. Look in your book and you'll see that supplies come before prepaid insurance. So if I have 110, 120, 130, then supplies are going to be 140. Look, these others don't even make sense. These others have a 5 or a 1 behind them. They don't even make sense. So 140. And then prepaid insurance, well, it's not going to end with a 1. It's not going to end with a 5, and it's not going to end with a 5. So it's got to be 150. So we've got 110, 120, 130, 140, 150. We're done with assets. Now we move to liabilities, and these have to stay in alphabetical order by tens, and they have to start with a 2. So this gives me an option of 201. No, that's not going to work. 225. No, these are in tens. And 215. No, that's not going to work. These are in tens. So it has to be the 210. And it's an A. That's why it comes before Supply Mart. See what they give us here. They give us 225, which can't be because it ends in 5. They give us 202, which can't be because it ends in a 0. We don't have a third one. This is just our second one, so it's got to be 220. Owner's equity. These have to start with a 3. Have to start with a 3. And if you'll look in your book, it has capital coming before drawing. So this has to be 310. It doesn't end with a 5. It doesn't end with a 1. It doesn't end with a 5. It's got to be 310. And if you're going in tens, then the drawing has to be 320. I hope y'all are following this. Again, on page 94, revenue starts with a 4, and we only have 1. Well, it can't end with a 5. It can't end with a 1. It can't end with a 5. It's got to be 410. It's the only one. Expenses have to be in alphabetical order. Alphabetical order, they start with 5, and we have to stay in the tens. So, singing my alphabet, I know that A comes first. And then singing my alphabet in my mind, I know that I comes next. Now I'm between M, S, and R, and I know that M comes next, and that's the third one. Q, R, S. So R comes next. That's going to be 40. And supplies comes last. It's going to be 550 because we have 5 of these. Okay, I hope you got that. Hope you understand how we got those numbers. So in real life, account numbers are going to could have 12 or 15 number digits in it. Just because, like at Williams, those account numbers, yeah, there's about 15 numbers in it because they have so many accounts. So I go to step 3, and step 3, look how they've put them in order by the number of what we just did. They put them in the order of the number that we just assigned. So now expenses are alphabetical. Capital is before drawing. Annika is before supply. Okay, so now down here it says Miss Seville has been classifying postage costs as miscellaneous expense, but has found that the amount paid each month for postage has become a major expense and has decided to use a separate account. Postage expense. Also, a new account, utilities expense, is to be added to the chart of accounts. Okay, account number blank should be assigned to postage expense. Now, this is on page 95 in your book. 95 in your book. So expenses, have to stay alphabetical. This is postage. This is a P. So P would go between miscellaneous and M and R. It would go in there. So the number you're going to give it is 535. And it gives you choices here. And we're going to go with 535. If we went with the 230, well, 2 is a liability, so that doesn't make sense. It can't be a 1 because it's not an asset. It can be 560, but it would not be in alphabetical order. So it has to be 535. And then it says the account number X should be assigned to utilities expense. Well, looking at our expenses again and staying in alphabetical order, utilities with a U would come under supplies. Well, each one goes in tens. So our choice is 560, 500, 535, 160. 160 would be an asset. That doesn't make any sense. We just gave 535 to postage. 500 doesn't make sense because U has to go at the bottom. So the 560 makes sense. The next part here, the blank general ledger account is shown here with the locations identified by numbers. You use the numbers to answer the questions to open the cash account. So this is a ledger. It's like an index card that you keep all of the information that happens to this one account. And this is saying the cash account. All right. So at number 1 is where the name goes, where the name of the account is to be put in. And then over here where it says 2, that's where the account number is to be put in. And remember, we just gave it an account number up here. This is also on page 96 of your book. 96 of your book. So right here it says what value is entered in location 1, right here. And the answer is cash. It won't let me type it in, but it's cash because this is opening the cash account. Then it says what value numbers is entered in location 2, right here. And it would be 110. 110 because that's the number on the account. It's not letting me type it in. Okay. So when you open this account, this ledger, and this is for cash because it tells me right here it's for cash, then cash would go right here, the name of it, and then 110 would go here because that is the account number we assigned to it up here. And you'd make one of these index cards for each of your accounts. Okay. Then it goes to on your own. And now you do the same thing, only this time you do it with Parker Ross's company. You still have to figure out each one of these is an asset, liabilities, owner's equity, revenue, or expenses. Click grade step 1 when you finish with that and keep on going. All right. So that is 4-1. And I'm going to say, stay safe and stay well. I'll see you next time. Bye.